Hey guys, tonight we're going more than 90 feet below the surface of the Atlantic Ocean, where pressure could crush a car like a soda can, the water's colder than your ex's goodbye text, and nothing, absolutely nothing, can hear you scream. You're aboard the USS Scorpion, a US Navy nuclear submarine on what will become its final journey. The lights are dim, the steel hull hums around you, and although the clocks tick on like everything's fine, you're already sailing into a grave. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop your current location and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how global our little midnight crew has become. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step through the hatch of the USS Scorpion sometime in early May, 1968. The air smells of machine oil, rubber seals, and last night's rehydrated spaghetti. It's tight in here, more cramped than a budget airline middle seat, but at least nobody's reclining into your knees. The Scorpion is what they call a skipjack-class nuclear submarine, 252 feet long, armed with torpedoes, and faster than most things underwater in its day. Sleek, silent, supposedly unsinkable. Outside, Norfolk Naval Base glimmers in the spring dusk, fading behind you. You're heading toward the Mediterranean, and after that, back home. A routine mission, they said. The kind that almost writes itself in the logs. Check in, do a loop near Gibraltar, swing through Rota, and turn around. But something in your gut says this trip won't go by the book. The Scorpion dives. As she tilts downward into the Atlantic, the world outside vanishes. No sun, no horizon, just endless, enveloping blue that slowly turns to black. You feel the pressure change in your ears, the creak of the hull like an old house settling. It's oddly soothing until you remember there's 1 inch of steel between you and thousands of tons of ocean. Don't worry, though the odds of catastrophic implosion are low. Mostly, still, something's already off. The crew's been whispering about a strange maintenance delay before departure. They had to fix a leaky seal twice. The propulsion system felt sluggish during tests. You remember the chief engineer joking, "She wants to retire early." Nervous laughter followed, but it didn't quite reach everyone's eyes. Now you're days into the mission, cutting through the ocean like a knife through dark velvet, and the sonar's acting jumpy. Blips come and go, irregular patterns echo back, and occasionally someone swears they hear something metallic pinging back at you from the deep. You chalk it up to tension. Deep sea acoustics do funny things. So does the Cold War. The Scorpion is being hunted, or hunting. One night, you wake up from a light doze in your bunk. Something's wrong. The hum is still there, but there's an eerie vibration running under it, like a distant growl. You step into the corridor and lock eyes with a fellow sailor. He heard it too. Later, the captain assures everyone it was nothing, just a harmonic tremor, common at certain depths. But some of the older guys, they've got that 1,000-yard stare going. One mutters something about the Thresher, another doomed sub. Lost 5 years earlier. Same fleet. Similar silence. There's no real ceremony about these moments. Nobody screams or panics. It's more like the air thickens, and you just go on with your tasks, hoping this metallic beast you're in doesn't betray you. But every creak of the hull makes you flinch now. Every slight lean or rattle could mean the start of the end. And through it all, you wonder what's outside. Not just water, but things. Strange things. Ancient things. Or worse, modern ones, designed by humans to destroy other humans in places just like this. You don't sleep much that night. And when you finally do, your dreams are full of pings and pressure and distant red lights. You wake to the ship lurching. Not violently, just enough to jolt your teeth together. Then normal again. Or so you tell yourself. Because down here, you can't trust your senses. And pretty soon, you won't even trust your instruments. The days roll on, but the air's getting heavier. Like the sub knows what's coming before you do. You wake to mechanical clunks that don't quite belong, an odd rhythmic hiss behind the usual symphony of pumps and fans. It's subtle at first, easy to dismiss. But then the electrical glitches begin. The lighting flickers in brief spasms. Nothing dramatic, just enough to leave you wondering whether your eyes are playing tricks on you. The mess hall's coffee machine starts shorting out, sputtering like it's choking on seawater. You make a joke about caffeine withdrawal being the real danger here, but no one really laughs. Now you're approaching the Azores. a cluster of volcanic islands that jut from the sea like jagged teeth. But it's not the islands themselves that hold attention, it's the vast, yawning abyss beneath them. A rift in the ocean floor. Some say the planet's bones are exposed here. You try not to dwell on that when you're sitting in a metal cylinder packed with nuclear fuel and 1,000 moving parts. Then, during a sonar sweep, a blip appears. It's there, then gone. Then back again, closer this time. You glance at the technician across the console. His brow furrows, fingers tightening slightly around the edge of the screen. It's not a whale. It's moving too fast. And it's not on any planned NATO schedule. The captain's called. Orders follow. You dive a little deeper, make a slow turn to port. The crew moves like clockwork, but something's changed. You're not just on a routine run anymore. You're in a dance, an underwater waltz with a partner you can't see. There's speculation. A Soviet sub? An unknown vessel? Or just a ghost in the system? Historians still argue whether the Scorpion was actively shadowing Soviet naval units or simply steering clear of them. Some think she stumbled into classified waters. Others say she was bait sent deliberately to test Soviet reactions. You're not cleared to know. You're just along for the ride, watching the red pins on the wall map creep eastward. Later, during a systems check, something odd pops up. A torpedo maintenance log shows one of the tubes hasn't cycled properly. No launch was attempted, but the system reset as if it had. A ghost firing. Someone suggests a glitch. Someone else suggests sabotage. A whisper, really, barely audible over the hum of the reactor. You remember how the Scorpion delayed, leaving Norfolk some issue with her weapon systems. And suddenly, it's not just a glitch. It's a thread. You pull on it in your mind, but it leads into darkness. You hear someone mention the hot run. It's not standard lingo, but the way they say it makes your skin crawl. A torpedo self-activating, arming itself without a launch command. Technically impossible. The Navy doesn't even officially acknowledge the term. But if it happens, a sub can end up tracking its own torpedo until it's too late. The whispers get louder. Crewmen growing paranoid. The chief petty officer tightens security around the weapons bay. No one unqualified goes near it now. And yet, there's a gnawing thought at the back of your mind. If the problem is inside the torpedo, who's ever truly qualified? You're near the Azores now, almost at the midpoint of your journey. The sea feels different here. Thicker. It's just salt water, you tell yourself. But it presses on the hull like it's curious, like it knows you don't belong. Another strange reading on sonar. This one lingers. It's not moving this time, it's hovering. Too deep for most subs. You tilt slightly, just enough to try and get a better acoustic return. And suddenly the lights flicker again, then go completely out for 3 full seconds. Just long enough for your pulse to leap into your throat. Just long enough for every crew member to go silent and still, like kids in a blackout waiting for the storm. When the lights return, you hear a faint, rhythmic clink. Metal on metal, like something tapping the outer hull. No one else seems to hear it, and you start to wonder if it was a dream, or a memory. There's no real comfort on a submarine, just routines. The mess smells like canned beans and grease. You nap when you can, neck twisted into impossible angles in your bunk. Sometimes, the fluorescent lights buzz at just the right frequency to make you feel like your thoughts are vibrating. There are no windows, no fresh air. The only scenery is the occasional flicker on the sonar screen. But something strange happens at 200 hours. A call from the radio room. You follow the officer down the tight corridor. He doesn't say much, just that you need to hear it for yourself. When you arrive, the operator plays back a loop. Faint, distorted, but undeniably structured. A sound, no. A signal repeating in static. It doesn't match any known frequency. Not military, not civilian, just something. Some think it's interference from a Soviet sub. Others guess it's seismic. But the operator looks pale. He says it sounded like a voice at first. You lean in, try to make it out. But the loop just hisses and scratches through the speakers, like an old vinyl record being played underwater. Then it cuts off. Equipment glitch. Someone says too quickly. And just like that, no one talks about it again. Still, the feeling hangs in the air like stale smoke. You're not alone out here. Whether it's Soviet steel or something else entirely, the Scorpion's being watched. Later, someone finds a note slipped into the maintenance logbook. Handwritten. No name, just, "Don't trust the nav." That's when you feel it. That subtle shift in trajectory. Nothing drastic, just a half-degree bearing change here. An unlogged course correction there. But you know enough to know you're no longer headed straight home. The captain hasn't said a word, but the mood has shifted from tense to electric. Everyone's moving faster, but speaking less. One sailor stares at a bulkhead for a full minute before blinking and walking away. You'd ask what's wrong, but you're afraid you already know. You're off the map now, floating in one of the deepest parts of the ocean. No landmarks, no light, no backup. Just pressure, noise, and a growing certainty that you're being pulled gently, inexorably, towards something waiting in the dark. You lose contact. Just like that, no dramatic spark or final transmission. One moment you're getting intermittent updates, the usual call and response from command relays back home. The next, silence. A dead channel. You're not immediately told, of course. You're in the sonar room when the tech quietly flips his headset off and mouths to his colleague, "Nothing." That's not unusual in short bursts. Radio doesn't always love thick layers of seawater, but you've been under long enough to know the difference between interference and absence. You feel it, like someone's turned down the volume on the entire ocean. The Scorpion drifts. Not idle, not inert, just gliding, following her set course, but now with no outside eyes on her. Like a ghost ship still pretending it's part of the fleet. The crew's still doing drills, still checking gauges and grease levels, but the edges are fraying. Men joke less. They linger in passageways just a few seconds longer, unsure whether they're on schedule or if time has started lying to them. Down here, clocks are theoretical anyway. Your bunkmate mutters in his sleep. Something about hearing breathing in the torpedo room. You laugh nervously, but file it away in your mental list of things not to ignore. The machinery down here is loud, yes, but it doesn't breathe. Or shouldn't. Historians still argue whether Scorpion's last course change was planned or a desperate veer from something unseen. The fact that she was more than 400 miles southwest of the Azores when contact was lost only fuels speculation. Some believe she turned toward an SOS from another vessel. Others believe it was to avoid detection from a Soviet sub. The truth? Probably scribbled in a long-lost duty log somewhere on the ocean floor. You start noticing the temperature difference. Not everywhere. Just in the corridor near the aft battery room. There, the metal seems colder. Not ice cold, more like freshly exhaled breath in winter. One guy says the ventilation system's acting up. Another claims it's just your imagination. But you know cold. This is different. You pass through the mess one afternoon and see 3 sailors sitting motionless, not speaking, just watching a bolt roll slowly back and forth on the tabletop with the sub's gentle rocking. Over and over. It's mesmerizing in a way that shouldn't be. You offer a quip, mesmerized by the mighty bolt, huh? But no one answers. You walk on. Then there's the dream. It's vivid. Too vivid. You're in the engine room, but it's wrong. Wider than it should be. You're walking toward the reactor compartment, but with every step, the room stretches longer. The sound of water dripping gets louder, more rhythmic. And just before you reach the door, you wake up except you're not in your bunk. You're on the floor outside the torpedo bay. You don't remember getting there. You dust yourself off and pretend nothing happened. So does everyone else. There's a mutual agreement on board now. Certain things aren't to be discussed. Not because of protocol. Because no one wants to find out what happens if you give the dark any more attention than it's already stealing. One sailor starts a theory that the sub is being magnetically pulled. The seafloor has anomalies, he says. Certain metallic concentrations could be interfering with navigation. You nod, like you're open to the science of it, but his eyes are too wide. He's not just talking about magnetism. Fringe theorists love this part of the story. Some say the Scorpion entered a cold spot in the ocean, an uncharted region where electromagnetic waves distort and compasses spin. They claim Soviet sensors lost track of the sub at the same time as US command. Others go further, suggesting the sub entered a pocket of the ocean that isn't mapped. A place where direction, time, and light behave differently. You file it all under possible, but not ideal bedtime reading. By now, several onboard systems have gone strange. Not failed, exactly more like wandered. One of the navigational repeaters starts showing mirrored coordinates, like you're somewhere and nowhere at the same time. Another screen flickers with data bursts that no one can verify, readings that appear and vanish too fast to catch. A junior officer suggests a full reboot. The senior officer just stares at the console and mutters, "The ocean's not going to wait for us to finish buffering." At 300, a loud metallic clang rings through the hull. You know the sound. That was no loose wrench or wayward toolkit. That came from outside. Everyone freezes. Not the dramatic movie freeze, just a soft pause, like every human body on board just got a tiny static shock. Someone quietly asks, "What pressure depth are we at?" "Too deep." The answer comes back. Then the emergency lights flicker. Just once. A blink. But it's enough to trigger a system-wide inspection. You follow the electrical team, trailing through bulkheads, checking junction boxes that smell slightly burnt. Not fire burnt, ozone burnt. Like something electrical passed through that shouldn't have. You run diagnostics. Everything looks clean, but the numbers still feel wrong. You check the oxygen mix and notice a 0.03% fluctuation. Not dangerous yet, just enough to start affecting memory, maybe mood. You log it anyway. Someone else says they hear voices in the ventilation shafts. No words, just mumbling. The sub's haunted, they half joke. Except, that joke isn't funny tonight. The captain announces a depth hold. "We're going to drift for a while," he says. "Standard maneuver to recalibrate instruments." But you know that tone. It's the same one he used when the galley freezer failed, and the whole week's worth of chicken had to be jettisoned into the sea, calm, steady, but with a tight undertone that says, "Brace yourself." You doze at your station again, despite orders. You don't dream this time, but when you wake, someone's left a folded napkin on your console. It reads, "What if the signal never stopped?" You crumple it, pocket it, say nothing. That night, one of the sonar guys swears they picked up an echo pulse that echoed back before they sent the ping. Which is, you know, not how sonar works. Everyone agrees to ignore it. And now, things are quiet. Too quiet. The Scorpion is drifting, somewhere beyond its intended course, beyond radio contact, in waters so deep the sunlight wouldn't reach you even if the ocean parted. No messages, no help, just the hum of the reactor, the clink of loose bolts, and the slow, steady creep of uncertainty as you begin to realize you are no longer where you're supposed to be. The air smells wrong. You try to describe it burnt metal, maybe? Or ozone again. But really, it's the kind of smell that doesn't belong in a sealed, oxygen-regulated vessel. The kind that makes your instincts twitch before your brain can even catch up. You lean into a vent near the forward bulkhead, sniff once, twice, then pull back. Definitely something off. The chief engineer blames a faulty transformer coil standard stuff. But you know better. That tang in your nose doesn't come from faulty wiring. It's the scent of something changing. You head aft, ducking under low conduits, and past the racks of sleeping sailors. Most are pretending to be asleep. No one wants to admit they feel it too. The shift in air pressure, the irregular hum of the nuclear reactor, the unsettling way the boat isn't vibrating the same anymore. She's quieter. Too quiet for a ship this alive. Inside the weapons control room, it's even worse. The red maintenance light above torpedo tube number 4 has been flickering for hours. No clear malfunction. No crew member has even touched it today. But it pulses, like a heartbeat, irregular, waiting. You stare at it a moment too long, then catch yourself and move on. One of the new guys starts telling stories. "Did you ever hear about the Thresher?" he says, voice low. "Same class. Sank 5 years ago. They never even found bodies. Just twisted steel." Someone grunts from across the room. "Yeah, well, Scorpion's got teeth. We'll bite back." But no one laughs. Historians still argue whether the Scorpion's torpedoes were armed before the incident or triggered after, perhaps from jostling, or worse, from inside interference. The story goes that a torpedo may have gone rogue, locked onto the vessel's own signature. A hot run, they called it again. Not a mechanical fault. Not even a deliberate act. Just a perfect, fatal coincidence. You find yourself back in the galley again, staring into a stainless steel counter that reflects your pale face too clearly. The cook's taken to humming sea shanties under his breath. Not the fun ones. The slow, weird ones about ships that never return and sailors who follow phantom lights overboard. You sit down with powdered eggs and reheated potatoes, barely chew. The food tastes like plastic and dread. And then, the alarm sounds. Not general quarters. Just a single, sustained tone, long and unfamiliar. You rush to your post. Your stomach does that awful zero-gravity flip you only get when the ship changes depth faster than it's supposed to. The Scorpion is diving. Fast. You grab a rail as the floor tilts. Not a steep angle, but enough that coffee mugs in the mess start sliding. No warning from the bridge, no orders, no updates, just cold descent. The kind that means one of two things. We're escaping something, or we're broken. In the control room, the officers are tense. One of them mutters, "She's not responding like she should." You glance over the dive planes. The hydraulics aren't holding pitch. The sub keeps overcompensating, swinging wide before settling. Like a bird with a wounded wing. You hit 0 feet. Then 200. That's deep. Dangerously deep. The Scorpion's test depth is around 600 feet. Officially. Unofficially, maybe a bit more. But this is past crush depth for most submarines in the world. Still you descend. Lights begin to dim, not flicker. Dim. Slowly. Like someone's turning a rheostat somewhere deep in the hull. The control panels glow fainter. One of the dials spins lazily, counterclockwise. No one touches it. Backup power? Someone offers. Negative, comes the reply. All primary stable. She's doing this on her own. You stop descending at 800 feet. The silence afterward is absolute. You half expect someone to cheer, to sigh in relief. But all you hear is a low, faint creak from the bow, steel flexing under pressure, or something knocking. Not from inside. From out there. You stare at the sonar screen. There's something ahead. Not a vessel. Not a natural formation. Just a shape, flat on top, rising from the seafloor. Smooth, according to the sonar pings, and almost geometrically even. One crew member quietly says, "It looks like a platform." You all just stare at the screen. And then someone else tired, sarcastic says what you're all thinking. What is a platform doing at 0 feet below the Atlantic? No one answers. Fringe researchers later propose the Scorpion may have encountered something unnatural, an underwater base, alien or otherwise. A few conspiracy theorists claim the sub descended into a trench never before mapped, containing structures too regular to be natural. A giant underwater installation. A Cold War cover-up of the first contact kind. Or the last. You'd roll your eyes if you weren't currently floating above something massive and unmapped. The Scorpion holds position. You feel it in your legs, no vibration, no movement, just stillness. The kind that gets inside your head and builds. You swear the walls are pressing in. You try the comms panel. Static. The same signal you heard days ago returns just a little clearer. This time, it almost sounds like speech. Just 3 syllables. Repeating. But not in any language you know. The kind of sound you feel in your sternum instead of your ears. A deep resonance. Then, without a single word of command, the Scorpion begins to rise. Slowly. Deliberately. No one has touched the controls. You rush to the engine room. The reactor is normal. Everything is reading green, but the ballast control system has engaged on its own. You're shedding water, ascending, still silent. Still rang. You pass the torpedo room on your way back. Something catches your eye, torpedo tube number 4. The light is no longer blinking. It's solid red. You ask someone to confirm. They look, they pale. The panel shows a launch command queued, not executed, queued. That means the system believes a launch was authorized but not completed. The manual override isn't responding. It's frozen. You radio the captain. No answer. You sprint for the bridge. Inside, the captain is sitting still, staring at the sonar return. That shape, the platform, is now behind you. You're rising above it, and for a brief moment, you feel something like regret. As if leaving it is the real mistake. Then a deep shudder rocks the sub. Not a strike. Not impact. Something internal. You hear the torpedo bay doors begin to open. No orders. No authorization. Just cold metal groaning as it exposes the ship's teeth to the sea. Something is very, very wrong. You run? Not dramatically. Not with action movie explosions or shouted orders behind you. You run like someone trying to make it to the bathroom on a turbulent flight, fast, careful, confused, and deeply aware that you may be too late. You're headed back toward the torpedo room because something about those bay doors opening on their own makes your skin crawl. And sure enough, when you get there, the outer doors of tube number 4 are open. Not the full rack, just that one. The indicator panel glows a dull amber, which means in motion. But nothing is moving now. The water out there is still, black. You peer through the pressure gauge panel and feel a wave of nausea. There's nothing in the tube. No torpedo. No remnants. No trace of launch propulsion residue. Like it was never there to begin with. Or worse, like it was taken. Someone behind you clears their throat. You spin. It's Petty Officer Lasky. He looks like he hasn't slept in 2 days. His eyes are twitching and he keeps one hand resting on the pressure equalization lever. She left it open, he whispers. What? You ask, even though you hate yourself for doing it. He looks at you like you're the last one to get the joke. The Scorpion. She's alive. She opened the door, gave it away. You're about to press him when the ship jerks violently. Not from the back, not from the torpedo systems, but from below. The deck tilts. You hear metal scream as the hull flexes against something. Something not water. A scrape, not a crush. Like steel on stone. The sonar room confirms it seconds later. The Scorpion's ascent has stopped. She's settled. On something. But not the seabed. You're at nearly 0 feet. There shouldn't be anything here to land on that doesn't involve immediate destruction. But the sub has settled. Rested. And from the pitch of her lean, not flat, like she's come to rest on a slope. Or worse, on a structure. Could be a seamount. Someone offers in the kind of voice people use when they need things to be explainable. But the readings say otherwise. Smooth contours. Flat segments. Angles that shouldn't exist naturally. Not with this regularity. You'd laugh if it didn't make your jaw clench. A technician in sonar quietly mutters, "It's the same shape we saw 2 days ago. The platform." The lights dim again, only this time, they don't return right away. The overhead fluorescents flicker like dying candles, then pulse low and red. Emergency systems. But you never switched over. You didn't lose main power. The ship decided to dim the lights. You look at the backup power feed and see that it's still live. Fully charged, not activated, you're not on backup, you're still on main. Which means something is altering the power distribution not from damage, not from overload, from intention. The crew scrambles now, quietly, but with purpose. You're no longer pretending this is a routine systems fault. You're past that. Then, through the darkness, a shape appears on the sonar. It's not the structure below you. That's already mapped. This is moving. A small object. Size of a torpedo, or exactly the size of the torpedo that's no longer in tube number 4. It's moving away. Not fast, but steadily. Descending. You watch it drop below the Scorpion's depth, and then it vanishes from sonar entirely. Gone. There's a moment, just a flicker, when you think you hear something inside the hull. Not outside. Inside. A sound like fingers tapping slowly on steel. 5 taps. Then silence. Later, search teams will find no damage from a blast. No telltale torpedo residue. No burn marks. But you know something left the ship, and whatever it was, it may not have been mechanical. Fringe analysts claim the Scorpion released something. A signal, an artifact, an entity. Something it had collected unknowingly on its descent. Others argue it was the final act of sabotage, a crew member losing it and jettisoning an armed payload. But no one can explain how the launch mechanisms activated without triggering the bridge. You return to the control room and find it empty. Not abandoned, just momentarily vacated, as if the officers left for a meeting that never got called. The sonar station is still running, but now it's showing 2 signals. One is the Scorpion, the other is something deeper. More deeper. It's moving, slowly rising, pacing beneath you like a shark beneath a raft, and every few seconds, it emits a tone. Not mechanical, organic. You don't breathe. And then, the ship jerks again. Lights flicker. Sonar goes blank. The hull creaks. Loud. And long. You can feel something scraping along the keel. Not trying to crush. Just touching. Like fingers along a spine. Historians still argue whether the Scorpion was struck by an outside force. Some maintain the sub suffered a catastrophic mechanical failure, possibly from pressure or internal sabotage. But the sonar recordings, what little exists, suggest a sequence of sounds inconsistent with collapse. There's a hollow resonance you've never heard before, deep and long, like a whale song run through a synthesizer. No known vessel makes that sound. No human machine could. Then, silence. The screens cut out entirely. One by one, the systems shut down, not from overload, not from panic switches. They power down sequentially. like someone flipping breakers, methodically, deliberately. The reactor remains stable, unchanged, but you are now blind. And then, through the silence, you hear it again. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap. It's not a pattern you recognize. Not Morse, not code, just rhythm. From the forward hull, you walk the corridor slowly, heart pounding like it's trying to escape. And as you pass one of the storage panels, something catches your eye. A shadow moves inside the reflection. You whip around. No one there. But the moment stays with you, because the shadow didn't match your movement. It lagged, half a second behind, and then smiled. You don't sleep. None of you do. You take up stations again, but the procedures feel like ritual now. As if you're going through the motions not to maintain function, but to keep it at bay. Whatever it is, and you feel the Scorpion shifting again. Not physically, psychologically. You're no longer the crew. You're the guests, and you're not alone. There's a saying on submarines. You don't go crazy down here, you just run out of places to hide from your own mind. At this point, you're not sure what's worse, whatever's outside the hull or whatever's now inside. The Scorpion is still. Systems powered down. No propulsion. No lights beyond emergency reds. You and the rest of the crew drift through the silence like ghosts in training, listening for signs of movement that shouldn't exist, hoping they were imagined and knowing deep down they weren't. You've stopped tracking time by clocks. You track it by sounds. The distant creak of pressure flexing bulkheads, the soft buzz of backup batteries spooling energy they no longer distribute, and that persistent rhythm tap, 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 pause, tap that plays across different walls with no apparent origin. You're sitting near the aft battery compartment when someone finally says it out loud. What if we're already dead? You laugh. It's the first sound anyone's made in half an hour. But there's no joy in it. Just the hollow echo of someone who wants to feel anything normal again. The captain hasn't spoken since the shutdown. Not because he can't, because he won't. He spends his hours, or what you guess are hours locked in the control room, scribbling into a small leather-bound notebook he definitely didn't bring aboard. You know this because someone swears they saw it already in the ship before launch, hidden behind a panel no one had noticed. He writes in it feverishly, then tears out pages and burns them with a Zippo lighter he's never used before now. Nobody questions it. Nobody wants to know what's inside. Historians still argue whether the crew of the Scorpion experienced psychological breakdown, isolation-induced paranoia. But recovered notes from early Cold War naval studies hinted at something else: experiments with deep ocean acoustics, infrasound exposure, sensory deprivation. A rumor lingers that certain frequencies, especially deep underwater, can make people see things, hear voices, feel followed. Science never confirmed it. Officially, you recall the weird sonar signal from earlier? That rhythmic pulse, non-human, non-random? Now the thought of sound waves shaping your emotions feels less like fringe speculation and more like the only logical explanation. That is, until the walls begin to bleed. No, not real blood. You're still sane enough to know that. But the condensation dripping along the inner pressure hull is no longer clear. It's thicker now, slightly tinted. You press a rag to it, rust-colored, metallic smell. You convince yourself it's corrosion, but it wasn't there 2 hours ago. And then you hear it again. The breathing. It isn't mechanical, not vents, not pumps. A slow, steady inhale and exhale, right behind the wall, as though the ship itself were alive, or playing alive. A deep mimicry of crew life. You check the oxygen mix again, still within safe range. No leaks, nothing to explain hallucinations. Someone on the sonar team finally snaps, throws his headphones across the room, shouting that it spoke to him, that it knows they're listening. Then he goes silent, calm, too calm, like he flipped into standby mode. You don't see him again after that. The engineering team finds odd burn marks on the inner surfaces of the torpedo loading arm, not from fire, from pressure, as if it had suddenly surged with force strong enough to nearly tear the metal. No one was operating it. No one has even been down there. You try to focus on something tangible, like the reactor core. You walk to the reactor monitoring station. Everything still reads normal. Coolant temperature, radiation output, core status, all green. But something new appears on the console. A diagnostic label blinking. Manual control engaged external. External? You check the input history. No one engaged that setting. And there's no external control option on a sealed nuclear reactor. That's kind of the point. You hit override. Nothing happens. You pull the main breaker. Nothing. The core is running. And now you're not the one running it. The captain finally opens the hatch to the bridge. He doesn't speak, just stands there, holding the now half-burnt notebook. You catch a glimpse of one page as it flutters open. Drawings, geometric shapes, spirals, lattices, a triangle inside a circle inside a cube, lines connecting angles that don't make Euclidean sense, symbols you swear you've seen before, maybe in old textbooks, maybe in dreams, maybe both. You ask him what it means. He smiles. Not kindly. It told me, he says. You don't ask what it is. By now, sleep is theoretical. You lie down. You pretend. You imagine your bunk is somewhere else on land. In the barracks, hell, even a seedy Norfolk motel. Anywhere but here. Then you hear something from the hull again. It's not tapping this time. It's a knock. A distinct knock. Rhythmic. Purposeful, not curious. Polite, like it's asking to come in. You press your ear to the wall. No sound. You pull back. There's a handprint, not pressed onto the wall and pressed into it. The metal is bent inward, just a little, just enough to form the unmistakable shape of fingers. 4 long, narrow digits. 1 thumb, no gloves. You step back and whisper, that wasn't there before. One of your crewmates enters behind you, sees the dent, and without missing a beat says, it's marking us. You leave. You don't want to know what that means. The Scorpion begins to move again. Just a few degrees tilt. But you know that sensation. It's rising. Slowly. And then you hear it. A sound that makes your knees go soft. A voice. From the intercom. Long dead. Recorded. Officially purged. It's Commander Slattery, the Scorpion's real captain, who went missing with the rest of you in 1968. His voice, clear as a bell. We've made contact. We're not alone. Do not repeat. Do not respond to the signal. Then static. Then silence. Then the ship lurches upward. No commands. No propulsion. The Scorpion is surfacing. And you can't stop her. The Scorpion ascends. Not rapidly, just enough to feel it in your joints. That delicate, almost imperceptible lift, like the floor is shifting beneath your boots while your brain plays catch-up. No ballast blow, no change in engine activity, but you're rising all the same. And it's not the crew doing it. You check every control panel you can reach. Ballast systems show passive, reactors still humming, hydraulics are idle. But the depth gauge ticks steadily upward. 700 feet. Then 600. The sub is moving, but nothing is pushing her. You pass by sonar, where a young operator sits motionless, eyes glued to the screen. We're not alone, he murmurs. Something's below us, keeping pace. He doesn't look up. You glance at the display and feel your stomach drop. There it is, a shape. Long, sleek. Not quite touching the Scorpion, but mirroring her every move. As you ascend, so does it. Not a fish. Not another sub. Something else. It has no mechanical signature. No engine hum. It makes no sound. It shouldn't be there. But it is. Then it drops away, just vanishes from sonar entirely, like it never existed. Your depth gauge continues ticking upward. Historians still argue whether the Scorpion ever attempted to surface or was simply rising due to loss of control. Some believe it was the crew's final attempt to save the vessel after some catastrophic event. Others say it wasn't up to them anymore. You start passing familiar depths. 0 feet, then 4, 0. At 3, 0. Systems begin flickering back to life erratic, like a dying flashlight catching a spark. The lights pulse in strange intervals. You swear one of the overhead bulbs flashes in Morse code. You can't make out the message, but you know someone or something is talking. And then comes the noise. A mechanical scream, like tearing steel but from inside. Not damage, not failure. Something opening. You and 2 others rush to the reactor access corridor. The compartment is sealed, locked down, but there's a sound on the other side. Not like alarms, like breathing again. Heavy, labored, unnatural. as if the ship were exhaling decades of secrets in one long, exhausted sigh. You put your ear to the hatch. It stops. Then something presses back. Not a knock, a presence, as if something is listening on the other side. The captain appears behind you, carrying the notebook again. He sets it down carefully on the floor. It's smoldering slightly. The symbols on the cover burned in now almost glowing. It's choosing what to keep, he says softly. You ask what that means, but he just steps away and vanishes down the corridor. You never see him again? The Scorpion suddenly lists to starboard. Not violently, but it feels like the ocean nudged her, like something beside you brushed gently against the hull. The ship groans. You grip a rail and brace. The creaking stops. Then the tapping returns. This time, inside. You trace it to the crew's quarters. One of the bunks, the one that's been empty since the sonar tech disappeared, is thudding softly. You pull back the curtain. The mattress is torn, not shredded, peeled, like something climbed out, not in. And there, across the wall, etched into the paint, are those same spirals, those impossible angles, and at the center, a handprint, again, but this one is smaller. You feel it deep in your chest. Whatever this is, it's not outside anymore. It never was. The Scorpion crosses 10 feet, then 800. Systems return one by one, erratically. The PA system crackles, then plays music, not Navy channels, not a distress tone, a low, warbling lullaby, something that sounds like it came from a broken record player in a flooded attic. Someone hums along. You turn to see a sailor tapping the rhythm on his thigh, matching the tone perfectly. You ask how he knows the melody. He says, "My grandmother used to sing it to keep the fog away." No one knows what that means. Your ears pop. Pressure change. You're nearing the surface now. You feel it in the air, the tension, the weight lifting ever so slightly. And then, without warning, the sonar blips again. The shape is back, and now it's above you. Impossible. You freeze. The Scorpion stops ascending, completely halts, hovering at just over 500 feet. Every panel goes black. Every fan stops. Every light dies. And then, water begins seeping from the seams. Not a flood, just a slow trickle, like tears down a face. You wipe it with your sleeve. The liquid's warm. You think about that torpedo, the one that vanished, and you wonder what it was really for. The Scorpion vibrates gently, then begins to descend again. But this time, not under power. You feel like you're being pulled. You try to run for the control room, but the floor pitches again. You fall. So do two others. No injuries, just surprise. And when you rise, there it is. Outside the viewscope, a light. Just one. Glowing amber, hovering just ahead of the ship's bow, deep in the black. It pulses once, twice, then slowly fades. Then comes the voice again. The exact same as before. We've made contact, but the rest of the message is different. This time, it ends with, "And we are not coming back." You close your eyes, and you feel it. The Scorpion has chosen. She's not a submarine anymore. She's a tomb. A vessel holding something: knowledge, memory, warning. Something other. And as you sink once more, your last thought is not of home, not of rescue. It's this. What did we wake up down here? What did we bring with us? And who's listening? Now, wind down, final 300 words. You're drifting now. Gently, slowly, as though the ocean itself has wrapped you in thick, velvet darkness. The Scorpion no longer creaks. She no longer resists. She moves with the current, deeper, quieter, like an exhale finally let go. There's no more tapping, no more voices, just stillness and that soft ambient hum that only the deep sea can sing. You lean back against the bulkhead, the cold steel warming beneath your spine as your breath evens out, the tension in your shoulders slipping free. In the corners of your vision, shadows no longer threaten. They simply are. Familiar now, part of the ship, part of you. Whatever this was, malfunction, mystery, or something the human mind was never meant to meet, it's over. Or at least, it's settled. The Scorpion rests. Maybe watched. Maybe alone. Maybe something in between. And you? You've seen what lies beneath the charts. You've heard the voice echo through black water. You've felt the pull of something old and buried and patient. So breathe easy now. You're safe. The pressure's steady. The hum has faded. And whatever questions remain, they can wait for morning. If morning ever finds you here, sleep well, sailor.